The gathering danger of junk in space. Hi there, welcome to Plain English, lesson 303. I'm Jeff. JR is the producer, and you can find this full lesson at plainenglish.com/303. The full lesson, of course, includes the English transcript, translations, the video lesson, and more. plainenglish.com/303. Coming up today, the most famous thing in the Earth's orbit is the moon. The next most famous thing is the International Space Station. But did you know that there are hundreds of thousands of man-made objects circling our planet? And did you know that the vast majority of that is junk, hurtling through space, waiting to crash into satellites, rockets, and even the space station? Even more alarming, there's no proven way to get rid of space junk once it's in Earth's orbit. The expression we'll talk about today is close call, and JR has a song of the week. By the way, here's a quick definition before we start. Junk is an informal word meaning discarded objects. The drawer in my office at work is full of junk. I'm dreading the day I go back and have to clean it out. Your garage might be full of junk, just old toys, spare parts from a lawnmower, chargers for devices that stopped working in 2007, a flat tire. All these things are junk you might find in a garage. So that's the word junk, and now you're ready for lesson 303. What goes up must come down. The maxim is true everywhere on Earth. It is not true, however, in outer space. And that's a problem for satellites, space shuttles, space stations, astronauts, and really anything that goes up into space. Anything launched a few hundred miles above Earth will eventually be pulled down toward the Earth's surface. Most objects burn up or disintegrate as they pass through the atmosphere. But get high enough into Earth's orbit and objects won't fall down. They'll spin indefinitely around our planet. These objects include active satellites, former satellites, spare parts, bodies of old rockets, and other debris. Together, anything not active or functional is called space junk. The U.S. military closely monitors a catalog of tens of thousands of space junk objects that are at least 10 centimeters in diameter. 10 centimeters is about 3 times the size of a tennis ball. For perspective, those are the biggest objects that can cause the most damage if they collide with something. There are between 500,000 and 1 million objects that are smaller, between 1 and 10 centimeters in diameter, circling the Earth at high speeds. In other words, the size of a marble and larger. These are small, but still dangerous. Go a little smaller, and some estimates say there are up to 100 million objects that are a millimeter or more in diameter. These are the very, very small objects, but they are circling the Earth at a terrifying speed, about 17,000 miles per hour. Even a small object moving at a high speed can cause a lot of damage. Consider this. If a single 1 centimeter long bolt crashed into something in space, it would have the same explosive force as a hand grenade would have on Earth. That could bring down a large commercial or military satellite, just a bolt. A single fleck of paint hurtling through space can damage the exterior of a space shuttle or the space station. This is more than a theoretical discussion. In September, a single small piece of space debris recently came close to crashing into the International Space Station. It might have destroyed the entire International Space Station. To prepare, astronauts on board took shelter in the Soyuz capsule that could take them back to Earth in case of an emergency. In the end, the object passed within 0.8 of a mile of the space station. 0.8 of a mile is nothing in space. A catastrophe was narrowly averted. This was not the first close call at the International Space Station, nor will it be the last. The U.S. military tracks tens of thousands of large objects circling the Earth. When one looks like it might collide with the space station moves safely out of its way. But they need a minimum of 5.5 hours notice to do so. Sometimes the objects sneak up on them, and sometimes they can't move the station fast enough. In those cases, astronauts need to prepare to evacuate in case the worst happens. It's not just astronauts that are in danger. In 2009, 2 satellites crashed in orbit, an active American one and a defunct Russian one. The American owner lost its satellite, but that's not the end of the story. When 2 things collide in space, they break apart. Those 2 satellites crashed into each other at high speeds and broke apart, adding thousands of smaller, but still dangerous, objects into orbit. They don't go away. Space scientists are worried about something called the Kessler effect, named after the NASA scientist that first described it. Objects in space, if they're up high enough, don't fall down to Earth. In space, they don't disintegrate. That means they may stay up there for thousands of years, if not longer, spinning around, waiting to crash into one another. If the Earth is circled by large and small objects, they will eventually collide. And when they collide, they break up. As they break up into smaller, more numerous pieces, collisions will happen more often, and so on and so on. The dystopian outcome seems inevitable. more and more collisions will create a thick cloud of tiny space objects, eventually making it impossible to use this portion of the Earth's orbit. That could imperil communications, weather forecasting, navigation, and military uses of satellites. It could seriously hamper our ability to launch scientific missions that need to pass through low Earth orbit to gather information about the universe. As ever, it is easier to pollute than it is to clean up. The first step is to stop making the problem worse. Space agencies and governments are starting to follow voluntary guidelines that say defunct equipment should be returned to Earth and collisions of large objects should be actively avoided. There is also a technical race for a way to remove the largest abandoned objects from space. A team in England is testing a contraption that would capture large space objects in a net and pull them down to Earth. A team in Japan is experimenting with using large magnets to attract objects in space. The European Space Agency is planning to launch a robot that would capture a defunct rocket and bring it back to Earth. If you saw the movie Gravity, this might sound familiar. In the movie, there's a military conflict that sets off the Kessler effect, where a cloud of debris is so dense that it doesn't allow astronauts to get back to Earth. Scientists say this isn't an accurate depiction, not that it can't happen, just that it can't happen so fast. Like so many things, this is a gathering danger that happens over the long run instead of all at once. Today's expression is a close call. A close call is when something bad or something dangerous almost happens but doesn't. Do you remember how you heard it earlier? We were talking about the piece of space debris that almost hit the International Space Station. If it had hit the station, it might have caused an explosion or worse. Luckily, it did not hit the space station, but it came within 0.8 of a mile. The astronauts were in their capsule, ready to evacuate. It was a close call. The crash almost happened, but didn't. Anyone who drives a car has had a close call. When we're driving, we often encounter situations that might have been bad, but weren't. That's a reality of being on the road. Someone pulls out in front of you. You turn but didn't see another car or a pedestrian. An animal runs out in front of your vehicle. You change lanes without looking behind you, or someone else does that to you. You glance in your mirror, or, let's be honest, at your phone, and you didn't see the car in front of you stop. In most cases, we as drivers are able to react in time to avert disaster. Many times, we can react fast enough so that there isn't much real danger. Sometimes, though, you very nearly have an accident. For most of us, it's not often, but it does happen sometimes. You hit the brakes and you just barely stop before hitting the car in front of you. Maybe you stop just a few inches from the other car. Your heart starts beating fast and you think, wow, that was a close call. Wow, that was almost a bad situation, but we narrowly avoided it. You can use close call with natural disasters too. Houston, the fourth largest American city, is on the Gulf of Mexico, an area that gets a lot of hurricanes. They are worried that a powerful hurricane might send a surge of water into the city. They process a lot of oil and chemicals in Houston, so a bad storm could cause environmental damage. Last month, Hurricane Laura hit the Gulf of Mexico. It affected Houston, but did not directly hit Houston. This was a close call. If the storm had hit Houston directly, it might have been the bad situation everyone has been afraid of. So after experiencing this close call, they are now thinking seriously about building storm barriers. That often happens after close calls, right? We nearly experience a disaster, and then afterward, we want to be more prepared for the future. Think about the last time that happened in your car. You'll probably be more careful in the few days after you experience a close call. It often happens with health. Picture someone who is older and a little overweight. Imagine that person has a minor heart attack. It's possible to survive a minor heart attack if you go to the hospital and get medication to increase blood flow to the heart. But a heart attack is a dangerous thing. You can absolutely die from one. It happens every day. If, however, a person survives a minor heart attack, you would definitely say that person had a close call. And often, after having a close call, we change our behavior a little. Something bad almost happened. The person changed his or her behavior, eating better, exercising more, being proactive with medication, whatever. Here are some other examples of close call. Because of an air traffic control error, an airplane, as it is landing, passes within a few feet of other planes on the runway waiting to take off. That could have been bad. It was a close call. You are the victim of a gunshot wound, but the bullet doesn't hit any vital organs, and surgeons can remove the bullet from your body. A close call. Your pet accidentally eats something poisonous. He gets his stomach pumped at the vet's office, and he survives. I saw news of people out camping in California, and the wildfires caught up to them quickly. They weren't paying attention to the news on their camping trip and found the fires quickly approaching. They were able to escape by car, but it was a close call. These are all serious situations, but you can use close call even in situations that are not very serious. The other day, I almost knocked a full cup of coffee off the counter in the morning. I wasn't fully awake yet. It didn't spill, but it was a close call. The Chicago Bears football team was winning in the fourth quarter of their game against the New York Giants this year. The Giants were right about to score and take the lead when time ran out in the game. For the Bears, it was a close call. They almost lost, but they didn't. In these situations that are not life and death, you can use close call to almost playfully suggest that something bad almost happened. If you really have to use the restroom, but there isn't one nearby, and you search and search, you finally find one and rush off to use it. You might come out and joke to your friends or family, "Wow, that was a close call. Disaster averted." JR's song of the week is Heaven is a Place on Earth by Belinda Carlisle. It came out in 1987 and was popular in the US, Canada, and Europe, and narrowly missed out on a Grammy Award. Heaven is a Place on Earth by Belinda Carlisle, and you can play that song right from your dashboard as a member at plainenglish.com. Membership is free. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. If you did, then you might enjoy becoming a Plain English Plus member. Plus members have access to a step-by-step video lesson, the fast version of the audio, translations, quizzes, pronunciation exercises, and much more. It's a great way to take the next step in English, and you get to do it with a fantastic and supportive community of members. You can sign up today at plainenglish.com/plus, PLUS.